Good evening. Welcome to Basalt Town Council and Happy New Year. This is our January 14th meeting, and we're starting with a work session with Basalt Affordable Community Housing, BAC, and that's our 2025 update, and Michelle, I think, is going to lead us through that. So, Michelle?
I am.
Take
Thank
it away.
you so much.
5:45.
Well,
Yes. I'll call you back.
good afternoon, everybody. This work session has been called to share the annual report of the Basalt Affordable Community Housing BAC Commission. Yes, excellent. We've got a couple BAC members present. Not everybody could make it today, but we have Dave Portman and Kaya Rumney from BAC here, and then we'll introduce our consultants a little bit later. Also on BAC, just so everybody is familiar, who's not here, Katie Erickson is our chair, Amanda Smith-Firestein, Jay Israel, and Perry Klesbies. I'd also like to just note that I'd like to thank Ann Baker, who recently retired from the commission. She served on BAC for quite some time, and we appreciated her commitment. So, moving on, we are going to be ambitious and hope to review four primary initiatives that BAC has been working on, and so some of these I might make a little shorter than others just so you have time to focus on what's prominent. We'll review the Stotts Mill Duplex, the Cypress Meadows Parcel 9 project, the Willits Housing and Community Space, and lastly, the Affordable Housing Strategies Implementation Plan. So starting with the Stotts Mill Duplex, did you want to mention the team on that one?
Yeah, so as you may recall, we entered a design build contract with Caddis and R.A. Nelson some time ago, and since then Caddis completed their design of the duplex, which is on 2 of the 4 lots in Stotts Mill that are owned by the town, the 2 lots that are in blue there, and now we are working with R.A. Nelson on the construction of that duplex, and they are currently under construction, and that foundation was recently poured. So
Yeah, and what I just add here is that in 2024, BAC reviewed the opportunity to build either 2 single-family dwelling units or a duplex on lots 15 and 16. BAC was able to conduct a site visit and review the cost-saving and design opportunities of building the duplex versus the single-family dwelling units. What we learned, we were able to walk through some of the buildings under construction out there, and those single-family buildings are really lovely. They are long and narrow, and so the opportunity to build a duplex gave us the opportunity to kind of square out the floor plan, if you will, and create something we thought would be maximizing livability standards, as well as meeting the Stotts Mill PUD design criteria, which limits housing and garage total square footage at 2,000 square feet. So each of the units that we're talking about there are 1,865 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. So, and here's a little floor plan. This is the first level, and they're just very livable with kind of an open concept, if you will, the living room and the floor, moving into the kitchen there. And the second floor is the 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. So just kind of maximizing options for future families, future households of any different size, and also we're probably not going to have the opportunity to build units of this size ever again. So that's where we are on that. Completion is anticipated in the summer of 2025, and I believe these are the first affordable housing units that the town itself has ever constructed. And that's in part thanks to the approval of the 2030 Basalt Forward Initiative. So with that, I would offer any questions. It seems pretty explanatory, but just so you know. All right. That'll help us stay on schedule. So moving on over to Willits, and the town-owned half-acre vacant property in Cypress Meadows, Parcel 9. Let Catherine introduce the team.
Yeah, so that team is being led by Z Group Architects and Connect One Design, and we have Scott McHale on the line tonight. Unfortunately, he's sick, but he's available if you guys have any questions for him. And then we have Sarah Ty behind us to help answer any questions you may have as well. That team is also being supported by Habitat for Humanity and Gail Schwartz. You know, obviously they have extensive experience in multifamily affordable housing development, so they're helping the team as we move forward.
Yeah. So where we are in this is in the fall, we kicked off the project. And really the goal then was to understand the site opportunities and constraints and kind of the rules and options in the PUD design guidelines. Those PUD design guidelines describe height limitations, parking requirements, design attributes, and all those sorts of things. Bach helped us inform us of our goals for the project, which was to maximize the affordable housing opportunities on site, but do something that's in the context of being a good neighbor and consistent with the character of the Willits Lake area. So what you're going to see on the next couple slides are the conceptual plan, sketch plan level designs today that represent the neighbor and Bach input for the units. In this slide, just showing you kind of where we are. We've gone through kind of neighborhood outreach, Bach review of the plan in general, and ready to kind of move forward into the sketch plan approval process. So we'll circle back to that. Oh yeah, so this property is one of the few vacant lots left in the urban growth boundary to develop affordable housing. So that's a really important thing to know. With this project right now, where we are is we're proposing 14 units. They're all 2-bedroom, 2-bath units, about 950 square feet each. Every unit will be deed restricted, and you know, discussion about what income categories the units will be something we come back to council with, depending on what the financing mechanisms are. Grants and different sources of funding have different requirements for meeting different AMI income categories, so we'll be back with that information in the future. One of our goals here is to be consistent with the neighborhood and kind of meet those existing design criteria that are out there. So you see on the top there a photo of lakeside townhomes with kind of some gabled roofs, some peaked roofs. On the bottom is a photo of one of the new lakeside modern buildings. And so the design that Z Group came up with is really this lovely blend of a little bit of both. It's modern with some detailing, so it's not a blank slate, if you will, but it kind of reflects this natural kind of transition between the two buildings. What we were able to do is we worked through some of the conceptual design elements. We're create a project that meets the height requirements. It's 33 to 36 feet in height, depending on whether the aspect of the roof is the principal roof or pitched roofed aspect. And just kind of meeting grade in this area is challenging. This site is slightly sloped. And I don't think I mentioned early on that this is next door to the rugby field. So for anybody who's not familiar, that is my frame of reference of where in the world in Willits are we talking about. This is next door to the rugby field, so pardon me for that.
It's in that first slide.
Oh, it is, okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because usually I refer to it for a long time. Catherine would say, parcel 9. I say, I don't know which one that is. It's got to be the one next to the rugby field. So now we're there. Here's a perspective if you were standing on your deck at one of the Lake Modern townhomes looking towards the rugby field. Here's a perspective of what that is potentially going to look like. And what you can see on this plan is we've got some surface parking, and then we have a nice section of tuck-under parking, which really is helpful here in both creating this lovely landscape buffer between the lakeside townhomes, which ranges from 33 to 60 feet away from that building, so really maximizing as far as possible that we could be, because as you all may remember, those townhomes have these nice exterior decks that look this direction. So we wanted to do our best to maintain privacy for those existing units. And tucking under and hiding some of that parking just helps soften that facade as well. We certainly can't afford to do a full garage here, so this is this nice kind of in-between, if you will, as well as meeting the parking requirements is what we're looking for. What you can also see on this perspective is that the building ranges from 3 levels when it's closest to Valley Road, which would be on the right side of the picture, and it drops down to 2 levels right adjacent to the path that goes around Willets Lake and that connects around the rugby field. So more of these details will come out when the land use application is out for review, and you can really kind of scope out and look at those certain details, but that's sort of the gist of where we are there. And just, you know, for reference, this is technically an infill development that is transit-oriented development. We're within 1,750 feet of the nearest RAFTA bus stop. There is an existing WeCycle station over there. We're certain that this project will end up having its own as well. These little comments on the side are little quotes from the neighbors when we had our outreach event there. So I have to admit that I don't think I've ever worked, and I've worked on a lot of affordable housing projects, that I ever, on the first go, got a comment that said that the architecture was attractive. So yay, team. That was amazing from the get-go. Usually there's a lot of pull and push in that discussion. Oh, we did put it in there. So, you know, here is the tuck under parking level 1. This shows you just kind of how site circulation would work underneath the building. This obviously isn't the whole site plan, but we've got 2 units on the end, and those have this beautiful view of the lake. They're right there, and then the tuck under parking under the rest of the units.
And those are kind of walkout because of the slope, right, towards the lake.
There's sort of a level of walkout. It's deceiving. The site really has a little bit of a grade drop, and to have the building be level across the site, there'll be a balcony out there, but I don't know that it's you're not gonna walk out into the lawn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which will help with privacy and things.
Yeah, yeah.
And then here is an example of the of a floor plan. I think the great thing here is that this, we've been able to design a 950 square foot unit that has 2 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms. Box review of this is really to make sure that the floor plans meet all of our livability standards, the size of the kitchen, the amenities in the kitchen, the size of the restrooms, storage that's available inside and outside of the units. And we felt like this was a really lovely kind of livable floor plan that can also be constructed stick-built or factory-built. So they're leaving us lots of opportunities for future construction.
Is there laundry, or is that on site somewhere else?
There is a washer and dryer.
There is a washer and dryer. Oh, yeah, it might be.
It's in the bathroom.
In there?
That's
Okay,
in the
cool.
bathroom.
That's a shower, but maybe the blue,
Maybe.
because the toilet would be on the other side of that wall.
Yeah, yeah, that's because there's the vanity and the shower.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot of floor planning for you, but anyway, there's storage units is probably the thing to take away from this aspect, which is in the bottom right corner. Each unit will have storage units on each floor, so you have space in your unit, and then these exterior storage units for your bike, your skis, all of your equipment out there. Same thing here. This is the 3rd floor, and you can see on the left side that's where the building is only 2 stories to step down there, and then the remaining units here. And while we're, sorry about that.
That's it.
While we're on this one, probably the only critique really one of the main critiques we got from Bach, who was very supportive of the plan, and we talked a lot about the floor plans meeting, being the size that would work for small families or roommate scenarios or fitting lots of different household types, was just the opportunity to maximize the site. So we had a little bit of discussion about whether the building really needed to drop down and have this area to the left that is lower, or if 2 more units could be placed on top of there. So from a land use compatibility perspective, those 2 units, if we had 2 more there, we would be exceeding the height the way that height is measured on the site, because it does have that grade change. Technically, could you do it? Sure. Would we have to ask for a variance from the height restrictions? Yes. Similarly, we were able to park 14 units. 2 more units would add more parking that we required, and so we would likely need to ask for an adjustment to the parking requirement on that.
I would wonder why we wouldn't be doing that if it is the transit-oriented development. If it is, this is infill, this is our last, not our last, but one of the last, like, why aren't we maximizing it to the amount of space? Like,
Yeah.
this is our chance to do it and not skimp just for
Sure.
parking, like, limit parking for some of the units, or like, if we, or do a car share, we can't just operate in this, especially because it's us doing it. I know that's not the way it should be, but we're asking for variances from ourselves. So I think everyone for an affordable housing is gonna make this variance happen. That just would be mine.
That's super helpful feedback, and we didn't want to assume anything, so we're happy to take the feedback, and I think the team, it's something we can certainly, we are prepared to adjust if we're asked to go that direction.
How much taller would it be if you added 2 units back there?
Well, so the way that height is measured from grade to certain points on that roof, and so potentially, Scott, you might know off the top of your, or better than off the top of your head, since you might be looking at the plan now.
Yeah, probably 4 feet, something like that, 4 to 5 feet over the height limit.
Yeah, that's a well-trod path.
Can we do some infill there too? Can we just dump a couple things of dirt before we start building? I feel like that's been done around here too before, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a thing, and I think, what you can consider here is that the overwhelming majority of the building will meet the height requirement. So we just didn't want to assume, so that's what part of the check-in here.
Can I ask if in the past, we've given that large of a height variance to any other building, just in recent memory?
Yes, through a PUD amendment process, a PUD process for the most
You
part.
said 3.5.
And we're in a PUD process here, so there is flexibility.
Yeah, my comment is this parcel's been sitting there for 25 years, waiting to be utilized as an affordable housing site, and you open up the conversation about adding more units, and you seem to have a pretty good comfort level with the neighbors. At this point, it may be premature to talk about it. It's very, very difficult to do infill development in Basalt, and we witnessed this across the street here. And I think we finally got past the NIMBYism and the neighbor conflicts, and I just see us opening up a conversation that's not worth having for 2 units when we also have Takaw on the plate and Black Mountain on the plate and this on the plate. We are over accomplishing, I think, a strategic plan that's been impeded by all kinds of things for 20 years.
Well, I'm only asking the question because,
Yeah.
when it comes to other developers, asking who aren't the town, coming and asking for a height variance, I just, for my own edification, would like to know have we been as lenient on those developers about that great of a height variance? Because it does matter, like, how it looks to
Right.
people in the town and in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
If we say yes to the town to a height variance, and then we've pushed back on other developments about something similar. I just think so that everybody's on the same page, and so that it shows that, you know, the Willits neighborhood, you know, that we
Yeah,
take their
no, I-
input seriously. I think it's fine
I
to
don't
ask the
disagree with
question.
you. I think the mechanical questions come up with the rooftop, mechanical systems and things like that that have caused us to go 4 or 5 feet above and things like that. But you're talking about view planes, and I just think this introduction to this project is so important in how it gets received out there in the community, in the community of Willits. that
I think
It's a
we've
can
got-
of worms.
Yeah, go ahead.
And the other, quickly on the mass transit issue, that's a local bus stop, and I'm wondering what kind of density will trigger that to become a BRT stop. Because right now it isn't, and I know the ski companies put in more units at the campground, as far as I know, and that this will add more units to that location, and we're seeing more activity on the other side of the highway at that location as well. And I wonder when if that comes up in the conversation about making that a BRT stop as opposed to just a local stop.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but we can look into that.
Would that be a referral question, maybe for RAFTA as
Yeah.
part of the process?
Exactly.
So let's, Hannah, and then Angela, thank you.
Yeah, I'd be very wary of making an affordable housing decision off of presumed NIMBYism. I think it's a reasonable thing to be wary of,
Hang on,
but,
It's
I
a
wanna
real,
hang on, Rick. Let her-
but we're gonna make sure that we're making these decisions off of trying to make the last available developments within the urban growth boundary, as thoughtful as possible. And this is
Yeah.
transit connected. It even got, attractive from the neighbors, which we never get, which is pretty exceptional. So well done, team. And I'd love to see at least exploring those last 2 units being
I don't have a problem with that, I'm just saying that it's a slippery slope, and I've gotten feedback from people that live there that are still part of that pushback on anything. So, I share your concerns. We've been pushing on density in the urban core for decades, and I think we've accomplished significant progress, so.
Jill, do you want to make a comment?
Well, I was just going to comment, I like Angela's comment, because I always feel that the rules should be applied equally across the board, whether it's the town or a private developer. I do think that the difference between a private development and this one is the fact that it's 100% affordable housing. And so I think that that, in and of itself, allows for some added, interpretation or leniency, if you will, when it comes to that. If a private developer wants to come before us with 100% affordable housing, we probably would, be as lenient with the height restrictions, but we have yet to see that.
Peter, do you have anything? Yeah, just to kind of close the loop on this one, I agree. I mean, there's a public benefit, and that's generally what we provide variances and things like that for benefits. I also share the sentiment that we need to maximize its space. Great design. I'm sure Scott and team could do another great design. And I'd love to see that in the process. And I don't think it would be detrimental to the overall, the view plane and everything like that. So I'd love to see that. But we always know this is there in the back pocket too, if, for whatever reason.
Absolutely. That's really helpful feedback. Thank you all. All right. Moving on over in Willits.
So the Willits Housing and Community Space was formerly referred to as Parcel 2E. We're working with a team led by Design Workshop and Charles Cuniff Architects on this one, and being supported by Sopris Engineering. And we're in the outreach phase and moving quickly into design.
Yep. Let's see, and just for background on this property, it was transferred to the town during the town center approvals. So we've had this property for quite some time. It's about 2.3 acres. It is approved for public uses with an affordable housing overlay. And it says 2023 in there, but it might have been 24. No, it's all flying by. Had some direction to see if a community space or rec center of some version might fit on this site, as well as affordable housing. And so those are the marching orders that we've kind of moved forward from. So that being said, we're really in a very early stages here of figuring out what could fit on that site. The priority is certainly the affordable housing. So we've been talking about this community space, if you will, as a community space and not as a rec center, because we're not seeing that there's space enough to have a full rec center there. But something that's a community space is something we've been investigating and frankly just trying to figure out, is that a useful space or is it really just a rec center that people want? So what's been interesting is we've had some outreach so far with the immediate neighbors, with student and youth focus groups, and what this, the pictures that you see on this page, Jessica Guerrero with Design Workshop is a member of Youth Empowerment Planning, and they do some really amazing stuff with working with students through the planning process and trying to bring youth into planning activities. So we ran a design charrette with the student leader group at the high school for an hour and a half, and just kind of went through what is planning, how do towns make these decisions, what are the opportunities there. And what you can see in the center photo is we had about 10 different tables with teams of students, and we just said, what do you need? What are the spaces that you need? What would you do? If you could design it and what were the things, what would you want? And they have the space, I think we gave them 4,000 square feet and said, here's the half of a basketball court size. If you put that in there, here's how much it takes up. Here's the space of a game room. Here's how much space. See what fits in there and what your priorities are and let us know. We, during that meeting, had Mentimeter projects. So that's where you have your phone out and you can vote and you see in real time when you're picking from a category of things, what the top things that are coming out. So you could see right away every adult's, except for maybe the teachers, jaws dropped on the ground when during the Mentimetering, space for homework and tutoring came up as number one. And if we had designed it ourselves, we would never have put that space as an option in there.
Who was doing the poll? You said kids?
Kids.
Kids put that? I just want to make sure I heard you right.
Teenagers. It was stunning. It was stunning. We were less surprised by the request for kitchen and vending machines, which was pretty consistent. But it was really interesting that, given the discussion, yes, there was some interest in having this half-size basketball court so you can program it with different things. Dances, dancing classes, dodgeball, the different things you could program it with, but it was acceptable to have that versus we didn't have, these other requests for these giant recreation facilities. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit more in a few more slides, but really, really fascinating. We also met with the middle school group and talked to that administration about their needs and just kind of what do kids need after school. And there was a lot of discussion because we also separately met with the adults at the high school and the administration and teachers there, as well as at the middle school. The library is providing some amazing services for kids. Those meeting rooms are all full, they're overbooked. There's not enough space for kids to go and get tutored there. They need more of that space. They need more space to do homework. Not everybody wants to go home or can go home right after school, so having this alternate space was really important. We had a lot of discussion about the fact that this isn't right next door to a school campus, and is that an impediment? No, not an issue at all. We're going to get there. We already get there. Most of the families live in Willits and in the Blue Lake 3 3-mile planning area, so it just really wasn't seen as an issue. We talked to youth groups, organizations that run youth programs. Stepping Stones was one of them, and just what their experience is. Catherine and I like to joke with each other because at the beginning of this, we said we're absolutely not putting the kitchen as an opportunity in this building because it's too expensive and there are too many things. And overwhelmingly, everyone said you have to have this kitchen. It's what kids need. It brings everybody together. Some kids need to have food after school. That's not an option. So then we had this conversation with Taka. I just blew myself up. That's terrible. Anyway, and nonprofits. What do arts need spaces, and what spaces do arts need? This wasn't a priority that kept coming up. So we'd be happy to hear it if we did. We heard it from maybe 2 entities, and they weren't necessarily organizations. So we didn't feel the need to pursue, as a team, the opportunity to turn this into an art space. It just didn't come up. Recreation providers we talked to, we have this amazing Gary's Camps, and what would that camp do if they had another facility to have anything there? Amazing ideas about different spaces, fix-it spaces, different ways to program. And then we also know, just recently, separate from this experience, that Crown Mountain Park is going through a PUD amendment process in Eagle County to allow some future uses to go there. So we really, those things combined kind of informed us that this really doesn't need to be a rec center, if you will. So it was good to just kind of check that box. Other things we did, we got input at the Willets tree lighting event. We had boards up at the winter market at Taka, and an online survey. And again, this is just first blush. There'll be another go-around of community input once we actually have a plan. We're really grateful for Design Workshop, had a Spanish-speaking staff member at our tree lighting event, which was just really cool to get everybody's voice heard at. So where we are, we kind of been operating off of this bubble diagram, assuming that the community space would be street facing, just to kind of keep that commercial experience, if you will, at street level and street facing. And then the housing would be in between, and then we really wanted to respect and just kind of work on this vegetative buffer that's in between the existing neighborhood and the site. That buffer, there's been a lot of discussion about, is it a wetlands, is it not a wetlands? It is not a designated wetlands. We had a study done. It is, I think we're calling it a lowlands. Yeah, lowlands. That doesn't roll off the tongue very well, but that's what it is. And if you remember, in recent times, we've done some maintenance to the willows there. Discussion about whether the willows are the best buffer there, or if there's something else that's more long-term, is something that we'll work with the neighbors on as well. So that's where we are, and we're working on drafting a conceptual site plan for that, which will come back for more public input, and then an application. And there's we love schedules. There's what the schedule generally looks like. Very happy to answer questions.
So this is kind of running concurrently with the other one, a little, a couple months behind, so to speak, with the milestone of the sketch plan.
Exactly. So
Taking
you'll get to see the rugby adjacent property first, and that go through. And one reason for that is that we needed to allocate our resources appropriately, and secondly, I didn't want anyone to be confused about either one, so we're just kind of having them apart.
Thank you so much for, just for all of the legwork you did to talk to so many different, people in the community and ages of kids and see what they need. It's just, thank you so much, because the kids really do need this space, especially middle schoolers. Mm-hmm. And I think having something like this, a place for them to go, will just be such a boost for them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No,
So-
it's,
Oh, sorry. So I agree. I love the outreach with the youth. Has it been discussed or considered about the space also providing some kind of senior benefit? Because we keep seeing these statistics about the population numbers in our, specifically in Basalt, and the increase in the senior population. And then I keep hearing about, from these seniors, the need to have a space for them as well.
Yeah, I missed hitting that point as we were talking through here. So that's, I think, also why we haven't described any of the spaces in that community space as just a singular use. The intent, because it's been really fun to talk about the youth things, in all fairness. Not that it's not fun to talk about senior things, but
A lot of the spaces are probably applicable to both.
That's
But I'm just
exactly
wondering
it.
if we've gotten input from that sector of the community as well on what
Yeah.
they might want or need.
I think that's kind of going to be our next step. And we're seeing that some of the meeting rooms, maybe that would be after-school tutoring, would pair out for senior meeting spaces or card games or those sorts of things. 'Cause we did get in the neighborhood
We got
outreach.
some, neighborhood outreach feedback on that, and people were noting specifically that at the Eagle County Community Center, that used to have some senior programming that doesn't seem to be as effective anymore. So they have identified that dual purpose could work really well with the with the youth, programming in the evening and after school hours, while more senior-oriented programming during the day.
And then, sorry, I had one other one. What's the plan for staffing for this space? Would that be run by the Town of Basalt Rec Department, or would that be outsourced?
Yeah, so I think right now we're trying to figure out what could happen there, and then potentially, where we started with the nonprofits was, for example, having this discussion with Stepping Stones. Is this a facility that you would ever want to come in and manage? And so there is, and not to say that they're the only group that we spoke to, but just, is this something you would be interested in? Because we are a small organization, and I think ultimately that's where it'll go, is that it's a space that's leased out and operated by somebody else.
There's a number of different models, I think, too, through the valley, ranging from like the Aspen Youth Center, Stepping Stones, Glenwood Rec Center. There's a number of ways to do that, so I think that's something we can still explore.
Yeah, there's, the Project Play report describes significant number of partnerships like that, and also the uses and how they've been combined. And it also highlights the need for the middle school population to have a place to go and also be available easily. A lot of our middle schoolers don't have the benefit of transportation to these locations. I'm glad you mentioned Crown Mountain. Went down there at lunchtime today and met with Becky and Nate, and they showed me the conceptual plan for their facility, and I think you could arrange, just on an idea, as a joint staffing proposal, because they're gonna be creating a community center that's more active potentially than this one might be and offer different things, but they had the same question, is how are we gonna bring on people? But I think if we looked at a arrangement there realistically, that we could, accomplish a couple of goals with a minimum of, effort, and get a partnership going where we could share staff, situations, scheduling events and things like that that could be done. And then if people want to bring in their coaches or their speakers or whoever it is, they can. So that, to me, is a real opportunity, and utilize these community spaces to the maximum. And they're seeking funding, and they are having, it's 2025 is when they want to pull the trigger on the initial phase of this stuff. On another note, there's a meeting going on right now, I guess, in Pickens County with Atlantic Aviation and some private investors and other interested parties on what their role is going to be in the valley as it what it means to housing. That's going to be something we should be following now.
Absolutely.
It's going to be part of my comments later, since we're on the subject.
Thanks, Rick. Any other comments or questions or anything?
I just would add with the Crown Mountain space that it probably is pretty obvious, but I think it'll be important to communicate with them to make sure that we are not duplicative in any way in what they're planning to provide and what we're planning to provide, and that the two spaces are really just complementary to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did kind of start this process with what is their long-range plan, just so that we would know. And I think that's where it was actually sort of besides being a surprise or relief when the students said, we need places to go do homework. I thought, great. They're not going to do that at Crown Mountain. We can do those here, no problem. So, yeah, absolutely.
Real quick, did you bring that to the school district? Like, how is there not room at the library post-school to do homework, to create tutoring spots, they have all these classrooms, they have like.
Because they don't want to be there. They want to leave.
I get it, but.
Michelle
you know what?
Kaya has her hand up behind you, too.
If you build it, they might not come.
I 100%
Kai, you want to come up here so you have a mic somewhere?
I 100% agree with you, Ryan. We have a lot of space where you can do tutoring, but we don't have the tutors. I've tried to get my daughter into tutoring, and it's really hard. So like we need someone who can like help run the programming and organize the people. Like we have teachers that have ideas for after school programming, but they don't have the funding. And so then are they just donating their time for an hour after school to run this stuff? So in some ways, like we have the space for kids to run a lot of this after school programming, but we need someone who can like help get it organized and get the people paid. We do need more space when it comes to like spaces for after school, like basketball. And I feel like I've talked to Matt about that. Like there is very little like after school basketball for young kids because it's taken up by the older kids in all the schools.
Court time, yeah.
Yeah, the court time. But like the library is sitting empty. And I'm talking about like the Basalt Elementary School library. I'm talking about like the middle school library. Like we have space in some of these buildings that we can utilize. And if you look at the enrollment numbers for the Basalt schools, the numbers went down this year. So there's empty classrooms that are in these buildings as well. So like some of the space we have, it's like I don't want us to create this community space, but then not have any sort of like people to run the programming. I think that's a really important question. This is like, we develop the space, what are we gonna do with it and who's gonna run it?
Can you speak to that a little, Michelle, as far as just like concept, like we're coming up with concepts, the process, right? Because at this point, we're very early days brainstorming, trying to come up with uses that may or may not work with this space. As we get further along, obviously, we're gonna think about it in terms of how do we operationalize that space and is it viable, right?
And since we're building affordable housing behind it as part of the project, can we tie some units to staffing dedicated to this space?
Yeah,
Because I think, Kaya, staffing it is gonna be.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely a big aspect of it, is that we're going to have an amenity here that we can offer housing to go with, if that's the direction we want to go. There has not been a single youth program that we talked to that didn't want to do some level of expansion somehow to offer these things. So it's certainly going to be something we talk about. For us, where we are in the project is we needed to know kind of the general parameters of what the demands are for that type of space. The heavier lift is actually going to be the affordable housing. So kind of quantifying, is this 4,000 square feet? Is this 10,000 square feet? I think right now we're at 6. And then deciding like that's something that we think we can bite off and program and not duplicate other spaces that are at Crown Mountain and these sorts of things, and spaces that aren't at the Eagle County space. So we'll come back with a plan for that, for sure. Right now at this kind of conceptual level, it's just figuring out, would it actually even fit on the site? Can we park it? Can we do all the things?
Sounds good.
And just one quick thing. I know that the Aspen Youth Center does a really good job of getting high schoolers to work. for the youth center. So they employ a lot of the kids, which is another benefit. So when it comes to staffing, I think that that model is something that we should definitely look at, not more adults.
For sure.
Yeah, I know, so we're at, wanted to take a break here at 5:45, but you got one more slide.
This is the last one. This is amazing. I didn't think we would get to this slide, so that's exciting. And this slide's not exciting. Well, it's exciting, but not really. These are things you already know about, but just it's a big part of what's going to be going on in 2025. We have an RFP that just closed, and we're going through the selection process of consultants to help us with these things that are listed on the slide. The STR fees and the fee and lieu updates are actually in the works right now, so that'll be coming around for review to P&Z and to council the next 2 months. But we're looking to have this consultant come on to really detail out a program for our deed restriction incentive program. And ideally, we do some buy downs this spring and summer. So that's the goal on that. We'll be looking to develop an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU policy, and seeing how that'll fit in some of our neighborhoods and how to detail that out as well. And then there are just a lot of associated land use code updates. None of these things happen without doing that. So that's kind of the high level of that. We'll be back in front of council with the contract in the next month, hopefully. So, and that work's anticipated to take most of 2025 and be done, and all the programs up and running for 2026.
Bake it all into the budget process for next year, whatever you come up with.
That's right.
Cool. Thank you both.
Thank you.
One
Yeah,
quick
go.
question, as part of the policy development, we also look at increasing the percent of affordable housing required in new developments, because for every new unit that we put on in the free market, we need X% of a coffee shop worker, X% of a teacher, X% of a nurse, and I'd love to see a higher balance towards affordable housing.
Yep, mitigation rates are one of the items in that are requested in that, and I missed
Great,
putting it on the
thank you.
slide, but good catch. Yep.
You're on top of it.
Thanks. All right, so we're going to take a short break here, and we'll be back at about 6, it'll be a few minutes after. Thanks.
Okay, good. I just wanted to like
All right, we're going. We're on.
Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to our regular meeting here for Basalt Town Council. We just had a work session a bit ago, so we're running a little late getting back. But that was a good discussion, so it lasted a little longer. But with that, I will go ahead and I'll have Pam call the roll, please.
Absolutely. Let us begin with David Knight,
Here.
Peter Schindler,
Present.
Angela Anderson,
Here.
Rick Stevens,
Here.
Hannah Berman,
Here.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard,
Here.
and Ryan Slack. Did he stay
No, he
Jumped
might be on the online.
online?
He is online.
Okay, so he's present.
Yeah. he's here.
Ryan, you there? Can you hear us?
Probably
He's running a drill.
yelling at a kid or something. Coaching.
All right.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so next item up, actually, before we go to the consent agenda, just remind everybody, because it's been a while, if you want to access the meeting virtually and use Zoom so you can make comments and things like that, you can go to basalt.net, click on the agendas and meetings tab, and go to the January 14th, 2025 packet, and you'll see the links and instructions in there for Zoom. So with that, we'll go to the consent agenda. So we have item 2A, minutes from December 10th, 2024. Item 2B, resolution number 1, series of 2025. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, designating the places for posting of public meeting notices. Then 2C, special event activity permit, Estilo Salvadoreño, 122 Basalt Center Circle. If anybody wants to pull anything off of the consent agenda, feel free to suggest that. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I'm sorry, Jeff. Can I do voice or not?
You can do voice, it's on consent. So
Okay.
yeah.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Mayor, may we just say hello to Alex and his wife from the food
Oh.
truck? Oh. We were just saying hi to Alex and his wife. From the food truck.
Thank you for all you do. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a call to the public, and just a reminder, public comments are time limited to 3 minutes. Make sure that you identify yourself by name and address when making your comments. Be courteous, civil, and constructive, and we'll make no decision or take action except to direct the town manager. So with that, if anybody would like to come up and make public comments, the floor is open. Looks like that's a no, and I don't see anyone online. So I will close that and move on to item 4, mayor and council reports and comments.
I'll go. My mom sends her thanks and gratitude to all you guys for throwing a big old Christmas tree lighting, or holiday tree lighting, excuse me. I don't know how many she's attended, but just another memory for a 93-year-old grandmother that really appreciated it and was impressed by what has happened out there on Midland and made her home safe, so thanks. One other quick one. Earlier I mentioned the meeting in Pickens County today. One of the things that stands out is the comments that I've just been gathering from the sidelines, is that Pickens County's commitment for the property tax that they passed for $8 million is an annual continuing funding mechanism. And we were talking about our $6 million bond issue that was passed, that it's kind of a one-time thing right now, and that strategy perhaps should be looking at something that's sustainable over time so that we can compete with that market in, seeking other funding. Because apparently there are steps being taken to kind of attract more philanthropy in the housing programs. So policies, things like that, what you're talking about, code changes. It's kind of an interesting approach now, and very innovative, and I think that the amount of
money that's around is, would be a good opportunity for us to really stay engaged in that. So, and then again, Crown Mountain, I think that's another real opportunity for us to get involved.
Thanks, Rick. Any other comments?
I attended the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition board meeting last week and just wanted to update everybody. We had a good year-end report from April Long on that. The work that they're doing is still, you know, it just seems to continue to gain traction. They have some really positive and hopeful, you know, kind of funding mechanisms in the pipeline. But still, you know, really reliant and excited upon their partnerships with, of course, the municipalities. They engaged a master's student who did her capstone project that produced a, you know, different and new, I guess, needs assessment from her point of view, and it highlighted a lot of nothing particularly new, but, you know, still really alarming and jarring statistics that hopefully April is going to kind of fact check and clean up and then hopefully present some of that data to us all. But, you know, just an update on that coalition, and if anybody has any questions, Michelle also can assist with that.
Sounds good. I'll make a couple comments here. So I've been, you guys know I'm a representative for RAFTA. I've been participating also with their first and last mile mobility committee. And the purpose of that is to kind of figure out what we're going to do long-term with first and last mile mobility in the valley. And that's, you know, basically microtransit like Connect, Downtowner, but also WeCycle. So we've, you know, there's a couple other jurisdictions have been getting involved with that. So Carbondale's launching a service. Glenwood, I believe, is, I'm not sure exactly when. So the questions come up about what's RAFTA's role in that, right? So a few of us from the board have gotten together and, you know, formed an official committee working with the staff on that. So some of the work that's been done is kind of looking at what are the grant opportunities, what are some case study type findings, and we used a lot of Basalt for that, some data and things like that. And then, you know, what can we do to digitize and kind of integrate this, right? Because a lot of what you do when you go on the bus, you look at a schedule here, and then well, I'm going to go get a WeCycle there. Well, there's opportunity to kind of integrate that digitally. So that's been kind of some of what we've been looking at as well. So we had a meeting, I guess it was at the end of last week. It seems like just yesterday, but it was last week. So that's basically what we're looking at now from, you know, kind of a staff perspective for our next meeting in February is how can we do some funding perhaps based on usage to the bus stops. So I think Basalt, we're at about 19%, if you don't count Exxon and some other kind of anomalies with it, as one method, but we probably also would combine with some other methods, and that's what we're looking at, like, you know, what would, you know, what are some other rides that could be, that we'd want to provide, what are maybe some things that we do other places that wouldn't be free, and that wouldn't necessarily be here, but that could be, you know, anywhere in the system, and what's that broader picture look like, what are some other grant opportunities, things like that. So not to say, to make sure we're clear, we're not talking about charging for Basalt Connect, but in the future, we're going to have to look at how to cobble together funding, because the grants are going to run on the RAFTA side, and our budget is only so big, and Carbondale's in the same boat, just delay it 2 years, et cetera, right? So that's some of what we're looking at. And then also the digitization process of getting like one unified transit app, which would be really helpful, and along with mapping and things like that. So kind of exciting stuff. It's early days, but this is actually going to wrap up pretty soon, probably in another couple meetings. And then it'll go back into just the general RAFTA board level to figure out what to do next. But we're trying to expedite the process because I know we're running out, and I know you guys are also looking into ways. I think, you know, 2026, we'll figure out a way to fund it. with some of these other methods. But just wanted to give an update on that and see if anyone had any questions at this point. I know I just kind of unloaded a lot, but
Great.
yeah, okay, cool. That's my comment, and I will we'll move on to next item up, which is manager's report. So Ryan.
Yeah, just one update for you guys at this time, which is that the Whitewater Park down here on Two Rivers Road, that project is, the design is complete, and the project has been taken to Post. So Post is approved of the project. There's some administrative approvals that we have to do at the staff level. There are no surprises in it as far as the design from what you all have seen or heard before, with the addition of a trail, and there's a bathroom changing area in the parking lot rather. And they'll lay back that slope, which they got ready for this year. And I believe that is out to bid now. Is that right, James?
Yeah, they actually received bids, so we're waiting to hear how that went.
Yeah, okay. So that should be coming. So I think we'll see some finality with that project this summer, finally. So. And that's, I guess, the only other thing maybe I'd mention. I've been out of the office for a few days, but right before I left, the paving on Midland, we were getting comments on that from folks, just lots of potholes and that kind of thing. We have Stutzman Gervais is back from their holidays, and they did a great job doing a pretty significant cold patch overlay there. Again, I've been gone for a few days, so I don't know how it held up with this last storm, but they're ready to continue that maintenance, until we can get in there in April and do their final paving in that area. So we'll just all need to be a little patient this winter, but hopefully we can keep it without significant degradation to that newer surface.
It's much better.
Yeah, since
I
they've
think
come
so.
back, it's a lot better, so thank you for that.
And that's all I have in there.
Thank you. One comment I forgot to make, the second comment, was as part of, I'm going to be West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition's representative from RAFTA. I will see you guys there. So just want to make sure you guys all knew that. And with that, we'll move on to council actions. So item 6A, interview and appointment, Finance Advisory Board, interview and appointment of prospective FAB member. You got Doug.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have tonight introducing to you Tyler Hollenbach from the interactions you guys had before the meeting. You already know who Tyler is, but let me just give you for the benefit of those who don't. He is a native of Aspen, went to Aspen High School, and then went on to San Diego to get his degree in accountancy. Worked for Deloitte Touche for about 5 years, and then did some pretty interesting work with in Guatemala, the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship of Alterna. He did that for like 4 years or so. And then also spent some time in Puerto Rico. Now he's back in Aspen, spent some time at Cooper Street Capitol, went to law school, did some work for the 9th District Court. Now you're with JVAM, which is right across the street. He's here in town. He's not officially within town limits, but the committee bylaws allow for one of the members to be outside of the town limits, so it's sort of like a technicality that he's not in town limits. He's up on Pinion Drive. And he's been introduced to the council. We have 4 members right now. We've had an open position for a bit, so we know this will round out our committee. It'll be a 3-year term. It's always they all always end in April, so this will be like the 3rd year type of pro rata. So this would be through, I believe the appointment's through 28. I think that's what the ordinance is, or 27. I guess it's 3 years from. I guess it's 28. So anyway, so Tyler, you can have the floor or talk to the council here and say why you wanted to join the council. I think he's going to be a great addition. He has an accounting background and that of also an attorney. So I think, be a nice little yin and yang there as we work through some of the initiatives that we've got going on with the town. So I think we're going to take a different approach. I was talking to Ryan, we're going to take a little different approach with the FAB committee this year. And I think typically it's been show and tell, just going through numbers and whatnot with the committee. I think we're going to challenge the committee this year to be more of a advisor to the town, and we're going to create a SWOT analysis. We've been working on it, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we're going to go through a SWOT analysis of some of the various challenges facing the town. And I'm going to have the committee weigh in, and it's friendly fire, right, to kind of come up with what feels good benefit on prioritizing some of the initiatives we have. We have a lot of things going on. So I think the priorities and allocation of capital are going to be important, just not near term, but long term as well. So with that, I'll stop talking and turn it over.
Thank you, Doug. Really like what you chose to wear tonight.
Well, I also did mention
accountant's thing.
Tyler's an attorney too. He went to University of Colorado, so he's a JD. So I'm sorry, I didn't left that out. Sorry.
No, not at all. Pleasure to be here. Thank you all for the time and the opportunity. I think Doug did a good job of walking through kind of my past and professional background. Thank you. I am really excited by just kind of diving in at the town level. I'm up here above Old Town on Pinion, so while I might not be in the city limits or town limits, I'm as close as can be. And yeah, just working across the street, I feel like I'm really excited to see kind of how the position can contribute to sort of meaningful value for you guys and for the town in general. And my background, I think the really relevant parts are in kind of the consulting that I did in Central America, as well as a lot of the work that I did in San Diego as an auditor. And so got to see a lot of P&Ls and balance sheets, and really it's been a little while, but I know my way around a financial statement. And so the conversations that I've been able to sit in for the first meeting of the FAB last month definitely made a lot of sense, and I'm looking forward to taking part in the conversation more. Happy to take any questions or, yeah.
Well, you answered my question. Why do you want to do it? He sounds like you have a great background for it, and I think I appreciate the attorney angle as well. So thanks for your willingness to serve. Does anyone have any questions for Tyler?
No, I second that. Thank you for stepping up, and it sounds like your background will be incredibly valuable to the town. I just feel like we're so lucky to have, really qualified people that are willing to, on all of our boards, step up and help. So appreciate it.
I hope so. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Mayor, I move that the town council appoint Tyler Hollenbach to the Finance Advisor Board for a term to expire April 14th, 2028.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, you're in.
Thanks,
Easy
Tyler.
peasy. Okay, 5 o'clock.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Fab quarter zip.
Right? Okay.
The Navy quarter zip, yeah, exactly. Fab. Short for fabulous.
Yeah.
All right. This is a short agenda. We're back on time. Look at that. Item 6B, first reading ordinance number 1, series of 2025, an ordinance of the town of Basalt, Colorado, approving code amendments to the town code section 1-82, general penalty for violations in town code section 2-381, fines, penalties, and administrative fees to conform penalty provisions with state law. And this is, I'm assuming, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll take this one. So this is just a bit of a cleanup ordinance to amend these two sections of the code. And as background, the town has some municipal offenses for which there's a state counterpart. And so it's in Colorado revised statutes, things like petty theft. And a couple of years ago, the state amended the penalty provisions for them, some of those misdemeanor charges, so they set them at certain levels. And as a result, many the penalties for the municipal offenses, for which there's the state counterpart, then exceeded the state penalty. And no one really thought this was an issue until this past year, when the city of Rifle got sued, when they had a defendant in their municipal court, and he was potentially for petty theft, and the potential penalty for that was up to the jurisdictional maximum of like $2,650. And because this exceeded the state counterpart, the city got sued, where the plaintiff claimed that this penalty is preempted by state law, number one, and number two, there's an equal protection argument there, which I'm not going to go into the details of. Ultimately, Rifle amended that section of their code. The lawsuit got dismissed. But the lawsuit was brought, I think, by the ACLU on behalf of this criminal defendant, and so we're kind of doing a cleanup to most of our clients' municipal codes to avoid this issue for them. So basically, for any municipal offense for which there is a state counterpart, a fine that would be potential penalty for that municipal offense cannot exceed that of the state counterpart. So that kind of covers us from that potential challenge. In as a practical matter, the municipal court, we're not imposing fines that exceed those state maximums in any event. This is just a code fix to basically to make sure there's not any legal challenge to our code, or in the event we had somebody cited with one of those municipal offenses. So this is first reading, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Was the equal protection part like a national, there's a national element to that with sentencing and things like that, like a civil rights?
Yes.
It's kind of tangential to all this?
Right.
No, it's glad we're doing that, being proactive. I know there's probably not a lot of scope that overlaps too much.
Yeah, it'll be a good cleanup to have in the code.
Seems like good housekeeping. Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 1, series of 2025 on first reading, and set the public hearing and second reading for January 28th, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Sounds like it passes. And with that, we're done. Very early. At least,
Happy New Year.
I'm gonna hit the gavel and you can.
Oh, wow. Look at them.